Okay, this is a demonstration for some different techniques of how to build the second Jae Young Kim inspired ceramic donut. Some of you are doing donuts with a hole again, but this time you're changing the shape. So you might be doing a heart-shaped donut or a square donut with a hole in the center. And some of you are changing it up even more by doing a donut without a hole in the center. And I went over everybody's plan for the second donut, your drawing and your plan. And for the most part, everybody did a really good job with that. I think the only thing that I noticed that needed to be changed on a few of them was just being a little more specific with the plan, but also there were a few people that said that they were going to use this fat coil technique with a donut that does not have a hole in it. So we're only going to use this fat coil technique for donuts that have a hole. And we're going to use a different technique for donuts that don't have a hole. And I'm going to show you that today. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to do is show you how you can use a very similar technique to the round donut if you're making a donut with a hole that has a different shape like a heart or a square. So we've got this big fat coil just like we had for the first donut. So everybody knows how to roll out the clay to make this big fat coil, right? And then let's start to make a heart shape. So instead of just twisting this all the way around like that, we're going to focus on twisting this one even more in this direction, like this, and twisting this one even more in this direction, like that, to create what will be two humps of a heart. Okay, so I'm kind of like curling it up even more than I did for the circle shape. So I've got this one curled up quite a bit. I've got this one curled up quite a bit. And then instead of cutting them down both at the same time, I'm going to cut them one at a time. I'm going to cut this one here. And I may need to make some more cuts later. And I'm going to cut this one here. And we'll then see how that looks. Okay. So I have got it like this. And now it looks like I need to make another cut. I'm going to cut just this part off. And just this part off to make it come in even more. And I'm going to press this part in. And then I can score and slip this part together. And then what I'm going to do is shape it even more. So I'm going to pull this down and pull this into a point like that. And I'm going to push this part in to create that valley right there. Okay. And then at this point, I would want to stop and score and slip. So I'm going to scratch in one direction here and the other direction on this side. Rough it up really well. You guys would use a paintbrush and some slip, but I'm just squeezing some water on there with a sponge to make it faster and easier for the demo. And pushing it together. And at this point, you just need to do a lot of manipulating of the shape. So it's already in somewhat of a heart shape, but not quite enough yet. So I would just keep, while I'm smoothing out the seams and smoothing the donut back together, I would just keep working on getting this heart shape exactly how I want it to look. And the center of the hole, I want it to come down at a little bit of a point. So I'm going to squeeze that into a point and smooth out the back. Both sides, you don't have to decide right away which side is your front and which side is your back. Just smooth both sides as if both sides could be your front. Then when you're finished smoothing, you would decide which side looks the best and make that your front. But I'm going to come in here with my tool because my finger is too big to really get in there. So you can use any one of the tools that works best and experiment, whether it's the wooden tool or the fettling knife, to get the hole heart-shaped just like the outside of the donut. So I do want there to be like a little point that comes down in the hole right here. Okay, so the hole is pretty well heart-shaped right now. Just needs to be smoothed on that side. Let me look on this side. Again, getting the hole nice and heart-shaped, just like the rest of the donut. And then I'm going to put it down and just keep manipulating the shape of the heart until it gets to the shape that I like. Maybe I want the humps of the heart here to be a little less sharp, so I can smooth it out in this direction. Maybe I want the heart to stay nice and fat like this, or maybe I want it to be a little bit skinnier, so I would go like this. Okay, so you can, and if you change your mind, oh no, I don't like it so much as a skinny heart, I liked it fatter, you just fatten it back out again by pressing it like that, okay? So play around with your shape until you get it how you like it. Then, of course, you're going to want to use your damp sponge, smooth out all your bumps and lumps, and then you really don't want to forget this part, which is, let's see, I like this side better, so this part is super important because look how thick this clay is. It's solid clay, it's not hollowed out, and it's about twice the thickness of my thumb. So you have to go in with your loop tool, your ribbon tool, and pull out a bunch of that clay to hollow it out so that it doesn't what? What will happen? Right. Good memory, guys. It will explode in the kiln if you do not hollow it out. So when that clay is thicker than the width of your thumb, what happens is it does not dry out in the middle, and little water molecules remain in the middle of the clay where it's the thickest, and those water molecules then heat up in the kiln so fast and have nowhere to go, and so they explode the ceramic piece that you made. And then it's oh so sad when you open up the kiln and see your exploded piece that you worked so hard on. Okay, so of course that needs more smoothing, more fixing, but it's got the basic shape and it's hollowed out enough so that it won't explode in the kiln. Okay, so that's for a heart-shaped donut. You would do pretty much the same exact thing for a square donut, which I made in first period. Okay, it's the same thing. It's just basically what I did was I made a round donut first. Okay, so this was round, and I can easily make it look like it's round again by manipulating the shape again. So you're just gonna, if you're doing a square donut with a hole, you're gonna use the same fat coil technique, twist it up, cut it, score and slip the two pieces together. Then once you have your circle, you're going to work on manipulating the shape, this time not into a heart, but into a square. But you want it to be a rounded square because donuts don't have sharp edges. Even when they are rectangles or squares, donuts never have sharp edges. They always have nice rounded edges. So it still looks like a square, but it is nice and rounded, okay? And you also want to get these edges rounded in this direction too. You don't want it to be too flat on the sides. So you want to kind of make the corners slope down, and this corner on the other side slope up, so that you have also rounded edges in this direction and not just a flat slope going down. So I would need to work more on rounding this part down and rounding this part up to create a rounded edge on the sides of the donut so that it's not just rounded here, but also rounded on the sides all the way around. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Okay, and then again, I squeezed it a whole bunch, so you can't really see the hollowing out that I did in first period, but it is hollowed out, so you can see in there. I'm just going to push it back together a little bit. So it's hollowed out, and then the other thing that I wanted to show is that if your donut with a hole in a different shape has ears or some other type of shape like that, you have to know how to attach and then also hollow out those. So I'll show you real quick. I'm going to roll a ball. Okay, so just got a little ball of clay here. It's bigger than what I actually need for the shape of the ear, but that's good because I'm going to cut away from this. So you want your ball to be big enough that the height of the ball is about the same as the height of the donut. So when I stand this ball next to this donut, I can see that the height is roughly the same, meaning that when I turn it like this, it's about the same height, right? Okay? Because you don't want your ears to be half the height of the donut and all the way down here. You want them to be the same height as your donut. So in period 1, I demonstrated I only did one, a Mickey Mouse ear on this round donut. But since I did a Mickey Mouse ear before, I think I'll do one of the devil ears this time. So I think what I'll do is I'll scratch it out so I can see what I want this to look like. So I'm going to go like this and like this. Okay, then I'm going to trim away what I don't need. Being careful not to smush it too much because I want it to stay in that, roughly in that devil horn shape. Just cutting away where I drew the shape in. Okay, so there's one devil horn shape that can go right there, but I need to fix it up because it's all, you can see it's got sharp edges and it's all ridged from cutting it. So I'm just going to round it out, smooth it out, and I can do more smoothing also after I've attached the ear to the donut, but for now, when I get it pretty nice and smooth before I attach it. Okay, so that's probably good enough for now. This is the part of the ear right here that's getting attached to the donut. So I'm going to score in one direction, this piece, like that, going down. And where it's getting attached, I'm going to score in the other direction, like this. Okay, again, you guys would use a paintbrush with the slip that's on your table and apply some slip right there, but instead I'm just being quicker with some water from my sponge. And I am wiggling those two scored areas together. You want to wiggle, wiggle, wiggle to get a good bond. And I can hear the slip. I can hear it going like a slurping sound attaching. You want to hear that slurping sound so you know that your scored slipped areas are really sucking themselves together. And then let's put this down a little bit like that. Then you want to smooth out. I'm going to use my wooden tool right at the seam. And we want there to be a little valley here. We don't want it to just go straight on. We want it to look like it's rounded down here and rounded back up here. There's a little valley. This goes down and then up again. So I'm using my finger and tools to smooth this seam, but also get that little valley in there. Okay. Then make sure you're smoothing all the way around on the side, on the bottom, and the other side, and then smoothing out any bumps and cracks that you might have. So it's nice and smooth. And then if you feel like you need to manipulate the shape anymore, you can maybe curve the horn more this way or make it point a little bit more outward that way. Okay. And then what do I have to do to this horn right here? It's about twice as wide as my thumb. Can I just leave it like that? Nope, can't leave it like that. So I would take my loop tool and really carefully, actually, you know what? I think this is a little too wide for this. So I think instead of the loop tool, I will make a little scratch. So at the end of the horn, it's not thicker than my thumb. So I don't need to carve anything out from there. But right here in this area, it is quite thick. So I'm just kind of drawing a little triangle right here. And then I can scoop out from that triangle just to make sure that one little area of the horn that's really, really wide is hollowed out enough that this part now is not thicker than the width of my thumb because I hollowed out right there where it makes it just the perfect thickness. So really all I had to take out was just a tiny little teardrop shape of clay from right there. And here it's kind of lost a little bit. The clay has been hollowed out from the square already. Just didn't get super cleaned up yet because this is a demonstration and not an actual finished project. Okay, and so there's one horn, and I'm not going to demonstrate the second one because this is just for a demo, but you can get the idea. So now we've got two different shapes of donuts with a hole. Now you guys need to see how to make a donut with no hole. So this Mickey Mouse donut with one ear is a donut with no hole in it. It's been hollowed out like this on the bottom without having to leave the hole in the middle. Okay, and this is not created by a fat coil. Okay, everybody look up here, please. Everybody look up here. I want you to raise your hand if you are making a donut that does not have a hole. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 of you making a donut without a hole. So those 10 of you, make sure you're looking up here and not down at your lap for this part of the demonstration because I really want you to be able to see how to make a donut without a hole because I saw on some of your plans, your written plans, that you were planning on using a fat coil for a donut that doesn't have a hole. And you don't want to use the coil method for a donut with no hole. This is what you want to do. You want to take a ball of clay, okay? Let's get the air bubbles out. Okay, let's roll it around. Make it nice and round. Okay, I'm gonna kind of slam it down a little bit on one side. I'm not flipping it over. Like in the past, you've seen me go like this and then flip it over and slam it down on the opposite side, but I'm not doing that this time. I'm just gonna slam it down on one side over and over like that until it gets to the right height, one more, in the center of how high a donut would be. So I think that's pretty good of how high a donut would be. Okay, then once you've got a mound like this, then you're going to cut out whatever shape your donut is. So if you have a donut, I saw somebody in the class has a rectangular donut like this, but again, we want it to be rounded. So I would cut out, just freehanding it. You guys might want to do a little line with your needle tool first before you cut out, but I'm just freehanding it here. So rounding the edges of a rectangular donut, and I can take off this outer piece, and this outer piece is just extra clay that we can put back in the bag for somebody else to use. She won't need any of that. And now we've got it looks like a little mini loaf of bread, like that, okay? And so what I would do is these corners here are way too sharp. A donut wouldn't have sharp edges like that. We would just go in and round them out like this. And you would just manipulate, again, this shape until you got it nice and rounded and looking just like a rounded rectangular donut would look like. This is the shape of an eclair. You guys know what an eclair is? I used to love eating eclairs when I was a kid. I haven't had one in years, but they're rectangular like this, and they're made with white dough, and they have almost like a vanilla pudding inside them, and then lots of chocolate on top. They're delicious. Okay, so you would just keep shaping that until you like the shape of it, and that it's nice and rounded and like has this kind of arching effect over the top of it. Okay, and then again, we can't stick this in the kiln nice and thick like this because it would explode. So, and this time you might want to, if you're doing a square piece, you might want to try the other end of the ribbon tool, the one that's like a triangle. You can just come in, take a strip out like that. Okay, go next to it, come in, take another strip out next to it, come up, grab that out. Just keep going until you have got all of the center dug out, just like that. And that should be enough of the edges, but then I just kind of want to go in and even out the depth of it. So I'll just carve out until it looks like an even depth in there, like that. Okay, that's it. Okay. All right, then you can just keep working on smoothing it out, adding any pieces to it. Maybe this one also has ears or arms and legs or a tail or something. And you would add the pieces just like I showed with the other one, scoring and slipping them on, and then carving out, hollowing out the back if it's too thick. Okay? Are there any questions about how you might be able to construct your particular donut that didn't get answered in this demonstration? Yes. A triangle? Okay, so a triangle, are you doing a triangle with no hole or with a hole? Okay, with no hole. So a triangle with no hole, if it's no hole, I would start with, and that's a good question because I do have another person in first period who's making a triangle with no hole. So she'll benefit from seeing this as well. Starting with a big ball of clay. Again, I'm going to slam it down on one side here like this. I'm going to smooth out my wrinkles. Okay, it's at a good thickness of this mound that I have here. And then this time I'll score it before I cut it so you can see. I'm going to do a rounded triangle like this. Just drawing it lightly on before I cut it out to make sure I like my triangle shape before I cut it. Okay, that's good. And just like with the rectangle, I'm not making pointy edges to my triangles. I'm making rounded edges to my triangle because you don't ever see donuts with pointy edges. No matter what shape they're in, they're always rounded a bit. So cut that. We'll cut this off. And then again, same thing. You'll just smooth this, round it out on both the bottom and the top until you get a shape that you're really satisfied with. Okay, carve it out from the back just like I did with the rectangle, but this time going diagonally with your tool like that, and then maybe you could go like this, like that in that direction, and then like this in this direction, and then carve out from the middle like that. Lift all that up and just keep working on getting clay out in a triangle shape. Okay? All right. Any other questions? All right, cool.